All right, so here we go. So workshop overview, we are going to discuss what is OPT, the basics of what you need to know. The pre-application process, we are going to go over the I-765, the online I-765 and what's expected of you. We are going to go into detail of what to expect while you're awaiting OPT approval, a few things to know while you're on OPT, and then just some general reminders for you all at the end. So some ground rules, please wait until the end to ask any questions you may have. I promise you we will have more than enough time for questions. It just can get very distracting, not only for me, but for your peers when I'm trying to get through a very important point and the chat is constantly blowing up. So please wait until the end. I promise we'll have more than enough time for you to ask whatever your heart desires. With that, though, please refrain from asking case-specific questions. So if you are thinking of a question, but it only really applies to you, email me separately or, come to walk-in advising or sign up for a phone advising appointment. So first things first, what is OPT? So OPT stands for optional practical training. So OPT is actually a benefit of your F1 visa. And it allows you to have 12 months, so a full year of off-campus work authorization based on the completion of your academic degree. So a lot of the time students will ask, is this a new visa type? Is this a work visa? Nope, it's a benefit of your F1 visa. So while working on OPT, your work must be in your field of study. So what this means is that, if you are in exercise science major and you end up working, on Wall Street trading stocks, that is not going to fly. Your work must be directly related to your field of study. And we'll talk about later on how it's up to you to make that connection in your SAVP portal. So unlike my friends that may have applied for CPT in the past, this process is a little bit different where you do not need a job offer to apply, which is great because that gives you more than enough time to start looking for jobs and go through the interview process. So now we're going to go over the pre-application process. So, if you're eligible, when you can apply for OPT, how to choose your start date, and then special note for my thesis and dissertation students, you do have some exceptions unlike everyone else. So we'll go into detail about those as well. So OPT eligibility, are you eligible? So first thing is you have to have completed at least one academic year in student status. So what that means is you've had to complete at least a fall and a spring semester. For OPT eligibility, unfortunately, summer semesters do not qualify. So you've had to have completed at least one academic year in F1 status. You have to be currently in valid F1 status, and your OPT cannot begin until you've completed your degree. So all of you that are in this workshop right now should be graduating in December, since that is the only way you would be able to apply for post-completion OPT. For my thesis and dissertation students, so master's thesis and PhD dissertation, things are a little bit different for you. So you can actually apply for OPT once you've completed all your coursework. So even if you still have your thesis or dissertation remaining, as long as you've completed your coursework, you can start to apply. And we'll go into more detail in a second. So when can you apply for OPT? When can you send off your application to USCIS? So for the fall 22 semester, your graduation date for OPT purposes and for when we shorten your I-20 is going to be December 16th. So that is the day that we are saying that that is your graduation. So you can apply for OPT up to 90 days before December 16th. So that means the very first day that you can send off your application to USCIS is September 17th. And that is actually tomorrow. So you can send it off up to 90 days before your program end date. And you can also send it off up to 60 days after your program end date. So the earliest date that you can apply is September 17th. And the last possible day you can send your application off is February 13th. This is great because, if you might have a job offer back home, you're not sure what you're going to do yet, if you're going to stay, if you're going to go. If December rolls around and you decide, I'm going to stay in the US and look for a job, you can apply for OPT after December 16th. So USCIS processing time. So last semester, we saw very abnormal processing times for the I-765, the OPT application. Usually it takes around 90 days. That is the average amount of processing time that we've seen in the past. Last semester, though, it was about 30 days from when a student submitted their application online to when they had their EAD card in hand. Over the summer, it was about 45 days. So we're not exactly sure what the processing time will be this fall semester. So that's why when you get approved, let me know, just so I have like a general consensus of how long processing times are taking. So we can hope for 30 days, we can hope for 45 days, but in the back of our minds, we have to think it may take 90 days and sometimes longer, and that is completely normal. So start date. So 60 days after your graduation, so December 16th, you can choose when you'd like to start working. So the earliest start date that you can choose and the date that you can start working on OPT is December 17th. The latest day that you can start is February 14th. So any of the days in between work as well, but something to keep in mind, depending on also when you're planning to apply for OPT and thinking about processing times, choosing a start date that is, late December, early January could be riskier in terms of not you getting approved, but you getting approved in time. A safer start date would be late January, early February. But really, it's up to each individual student to know what's best for them, since there are so many other circumstances to consider. So you have 60 days after your program end date to choose when you'd like to start working. So how do you choose your OPT start date? So like I said, there's a few things that you should consider when choosing. So number one, the ISSO staff cannot make this decision for you. So, don't email us asking, what's the best possible OPT start date, because like I said before, that is so different for every student. It is very, very important that you choose wisely about your OPT start date, because we will not change it after we've issued you your I-20. So your OPT I-20 that shows that you've requested OPT and the start date that you have chosen. So that was kind of an issue in the spring semester, but just want to make that clear that we are not going to change your start date after we've issued you your I-20. So you're stuck with it. Some other things to consider, maybe you haven't started the interview process yet. Maybe you have, maybe you're thinking to relocate. All of that takes time. And also maybe you want to, go on holiday or go back home for a little bit before you start working, or just take time to chill. It's perfectly fine for you to take a break between school and work. Because let me tell you, once you start working full time in the real world, life hits you pretty fast. So take that time where you're in between student and work and just take the time to chill. Okay. So like we said, your requested start date must be within 60 days after your program end date. Your start date is the date that you have permission to begin your work on OPT. No reason whatsoever for you to be working before your start date. That is a violation, but you can start working later. So for example, if your OPT start date is January 1st, but you're not joining your employer until the third week of January, that is perfectly fine. As I said, think very closely about your OPT start date, because once you send off your application to USCIS, there is no way for you to, call them up and be like, hey, can you change my requested OPT start date? My employer wants me to work earlier now. That does not happen. So that is why you really have to think hard about when you'd like to start working. So OPT start date. So Tricky Ricky chooses the following OPT dates. So he chooses December 17th, which is the very first day that he could choose to begin working. If, Ricky applies within reasonable amount of time and he gets approved, then everything is perfect. He's all set. But what happens to him if USCIS actually issues his EAD card on January 1st? So about 2 weeks after his requested start date. So USCIS will edit the EAD to reflect the delayed issuance date, but Ricky cannot start working until he has both the EAD card in hand and his start date has passed. So let me reiterate that you cannot start working until you have your EAD card in hand and your start date has arrived. For Ricky, his employer might be put off by the delay and might rescind his offer. So something to think about if you are planning to choose an earlier start date, if you don't already have, things in place. Sam. So Sam chooses the following OPT dates. She chooses the last possible day that she can choose as a start date. She doesn't have a job offer. She hasn't started the job interview process yet. So she's worried it may take a while to find one. She's also, busy with her last semester, and wants to take a breather between study and work, which is completely reasonable and understandable. And she also, might not trust USCIS to process her application within 90 days, which I will say recently it's pretty rare if you're not approved within 90 days. So what happens to Sam if USCIS actually issues her EAD card a full month before her start date? That's great, but she cannot start working until her start date has arrived. So even if she has her EAD card in hand, she cannot start working. So she might get a job quicker than she expected, which is awesome. And the employer might want her to start before February 15th, but she can't. She does have to wait until her start date arrives. So you can see with these two different students, a bunch of different circumstances regarding each student and how they choose their OPT start date. So this is one of my favorite Disney movies, The Emperor's New Groove. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend on Disney Plus. So you have the angel and devil on your shoulder. The devil is telling you, don't you want to start work right away? Don't you want to start making money right away? Make your start date the day right after graduation. But then you have the angel on the other side saying, you should play it safe and choose a start date with a little bit more cushion. Don't you want to rest? So, like I said, it really is up to you to see the full picture and choose your OPT start date. Okay, so for my master's thesis and PhD dissertation students, listen up. So you actually have flexibility in choosing your OPT start date. For you all, upon completion of your coursework, full-time OPT is available to you. All we ask, and the one condition, is that your defense date should be scheduled within the first 6 months of your OPT start date. Okay, so this is our one condition that needs to be met. And if you are receiving any type of GASP or on-campus employment, any stipends or health insurance, that all ends by the OPT start date. So that is something to super keep in mind. If you might not have a job offer right away, there might be a gap in between all of that. So at the end of the day, it's up to your advisor to sign off on that, as well as the ISSO. If we take a look at your record and speak with your advisor and think that, you're not making normal progress towards your degree, then we will not approve OPT for you. So some things to think about. So as you all are aware, writing a dissertation, writing a thesis, that is a full-time job in itself. So just think about doing 2 full-time jobs at once. So you have your full-time work as well as finishing a dissertation and thesis when you get home. So that can definitely be overwhelming. You cannot extend your I-20 for more time to complete your thesis or dissertation. And if you are eligible for a STEM extension, so if you are in a STEM field, you do have the possibility of doing an extra 2 years on OPT, which is called the STEM OPT extension, but you cannot apply for that without a copy of your diploma. So if you don't finish your thesis or dissertation, you're not getting that diploma and you will not be able to apply for your STEM extension. So definitely some things to keep in mind if you are in this position. So how to apply? So if you actually go on our ISSO website, which I'll show you right here, under employment and internships, you will see optional practical training OPT. That is us, and this is the page we need. So under how to apply, you'll see an actual checklist of what you need to do in order to apply for OPT. So first things first, you have to attend an OPT workshop, which congrats, you are in right now. The second is to decide your start date, which we just went over, and then you can apply for your OPT requested I-20. So you can easily click this huge gold button right here to request your OPT I-20. And this will lead you directly to your ISSO Connect portal, which is where the application is. So you will need an academic advisor to recommend you for OPT. It can be a program advisor, graduate coordinator, doesn't really matter, as long as they know you and they know your academic record and know that, yes, it's your final semester and you've completed all degree requirements. So by recommendation for your academic advisor, I don't mean that they'll have to write, the super long recommendation letter for you for OPT. It is nothing like that at all. They will just get an email sent from ISSO Connect portal saying, is this student in their last semester and have they completed all their degree requirements. So really they're just checking off 2 to 3 boxes and sending it back. For those of you who might have advisors that don't necessarily work with international students all too often, you might want to shoot them an email beforehand and say, I'm applying for OPT. It's, work authorization for international students post-graduation, and I need my academic advisor to sign off to say that, yes, I'm graduating. So it definitely doesn't hurt if you send that beforehand. So that'll be sent, and then you can submit your ISSO request for your OPT I-20. Our processing time is 5 business days. So 5 business days, that does not include the weekend. Please be patient with us because it's just me processing hundreds of these OPT I-20 requests. So I promise you that you will get your I-20 in those 5 processing day time frame. So please don't email me after like 24 hours and ask where your I-20 is, because that's just not good and it's not fair to me. So something else that I want to know about filling out the request form, please only submit one recommender request in that application. If you submit more than one, so for example, if you send it to your program advisor, your professor, your academic advisor to see which one will, click it first and submit, you will not be able to submit your application, okay? So please only request one academic advisor, or you won't be able to submit for your I-20. So if we go back here, so after you get your I-20 uploaded to you in your ISSO Connect portal, it's time for you to sign up for an OPT review session. In this OPT review session, we go over the online I-765 application step by step. And this is a great opportunity for you to ask me any questions that you may have if you've already looked it over and before you send it off. So this semester, we are doing 2 days of OPT reviews, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. and Fridays at 9 a.m. And both of those will be happening over Zoom. And you will get an automated email once your I-20 is uploaded to sign up for the OPT review. Something about the OPT application, the I-765, there is a fee associated with it. Some students don't know that. So yes, you do have to pay $410 to send off your OPT application. So that's definitely something to think about. I know it's a huge chunk of change, especially for college students. So think about that before you request your OPT I-20. And I say that because once I issue you your OPT I-20, you have 30 days to submit your OPT application with that I-20. So it's only valid for those 30 days. So if you don't have that amount of money yet, think about that before you apply for your I-20. All right, so some things to know while waiting on OPT approval. So this is what your EAD card actually looks like. It looks like just a license. It'll have all your personal information, as well as it'll say student post-completion OPT, along with your USCIS approved start date and end date. So like we said, employment can only begin when your EAD is received and your employment start date is reached. Your EAD card cannot be forwarded. So because it's USPS, federal mail does not get forwarded. But if you do change your address, While your application is pending, you can fill out the AR11 or just reach out to me and I can walk you through it, so that your EAD card is sent to a new address. How to look up your case status. So USCIS actually has a case status tool where you can check to see the status of it. We will talk about this more in depth during the OPT review and how to exactly do it. But if your case is outside normal processing time, so like over 5 months, we'll take a look at that and then see if we can submit an online inquiry, since calling USCIS can sometimes lead you nowhere sometimes. Other waiting issues. So if you have a North Carolina driver's license that's expiring maybe before your EAD card arrives, there is a special circumstance where you can request a 60-day extension on your license, since you won't be able to renew your license without that EAD card. If that's the case for you, then please reach out to me and we can discuss. Once you do get your EAD card, please make sure that it's correct. Please make sure that your name is on there correctly, that your gender is on there correctly, and your start dates and end dates are on there correctly. Last semester, we had quite a few cases, I think because there are a bunch of new USCIS adjudicators, but a lot of EAD cards had typos on them. So those typos are certainly easier to fix if they're caught super early. And we'll talk about this in the OPT review, but if you were to get an RFE or a denial or rejection, please reach out to me immediately so we can take a look at what our next move is going to be, okay? So we know that this time can be super stressful for students, right? And we totally understand that. You guys are graduating, you are, about to full on start adulthood, start a full-time job. So there's a lot of emotions, and you have that anxiety of, am I going to get approved or not? Am I going to get approved in time for my start date? Will my employer have to rescind my offer? So just some good ways to manage stress. Exercising, spending time outside or on your hobbies, visiting the Career Center on campus. They do amazing, amazing work, and they have such amazing resources for international students. They'll take a look at your resume and cover letter and do a mock interview with you. So definitely take advantage of those services. They are free for you and they are the experts. And overall, just focus on positive things in life. Things to not do while managing stress. Do not check your case status every day. I promise you, there will be no update every day. If anything, check it once a week. If that, I'd probably check it once every 2 weeks. Do not get in a deep, dark Reddit thread hole that is from 7 years ago that says USCIS is getting rid of the I-765 and OPT, and do not listen to friends on various social media platforms either. They are not experts, and everyone's case is completely different. So if you do have a question, ask us first. Don't call USCIS every day, and don't think about the scary what ifs if you're in like the 0.0001% that gets denied. Don't worry about that. Think positively, okay? Don't let this be you. Let this be you. All right, so while on OPT, things that you should know about. So once you get your EAD card in hand and your start date has arrived, you will get an email creation link to create your SEVP portal account. So now that you're on OPT, USCIS has to track what you're doing. So they need to be up to date with all of your personal information. So your personal address, phone number, email address, and they also have to know where you're working, how long you've worked there, and the address of that. So it might kind of look like spam, but don't worry if you do get an email saying, SAVP portal account creation, that is the real deal. And you do have to create your account right away, even if you don't have a job yet, because the link will expire. Sometimes things can get tricky. Thesis has its kinks they need to work out with the portal. So sometimes students won't get that account creation link. If that's the case, don't worry about it. Just email me and I can easily trigger that for you. So what to report on OPT? So there are new responsibilities for you to know about while you're on OPT. So using that SAVP portal, you have to report any changes within 10 days. So if you change addresses or phone numbers, if you start or end any type of employment, or if your office location changes, for example, it is your responsibility to report this. Your portal is not controlled by us, not controlled by the ISSO. It is fully on you to listen to these requirements and report them on time. Every time you do report, for example, a new employer, you will not be getting a new I-20 sent to you, okay? You might have friends at other schools that do this, but really it's not in the regulations and it is not mandatory. I will not print you a new I-20 to make you feel better. So just letting you guys know that now. A new I-20 is not necessary for you when you do make these changes. Unemployment time. So a positive thing about OPT is that you do get 90 days of unemployment time during your full 12 months of OPT. So for example, those 90 days, they can be used in a chunk, so 90 days straight away, or you can use 30 days here, do a job for 6 months, and then realize it's not a good fit for you and use some unemployment time after that. So you don't have to use all of these 90 days at once. And counting begins from the start date on your EAD. So if your start date rolls around and you still don't have a job, that is when your unemployment time will start ticking. So employment must be 20 hours plus per week in your field of study. So 20 hours in terms of OPT, that is full-time employment. So unpaid internships count, or paid internships. It can be self-employment, though I will say if you are going to go this route, consult a qualified immigration attorney, since there are more obstacles for you to face when reporting self-employment. And obviously we want you guys to be paid, so paid employment as well. You are allowed to have more than one employer, so you can have 2 employers and you can work 40 hours a week for both of them. There is no maximum amount of hours that you can work, but you also have to ask yourself, don't you want to have a life? Working 80 hours a week does not sound fun, and obviously that will lead you to burnout. So just something to keep in mind. And you can change employers if you would like. If something's not a good fit for you, you are not stuck with the same employer for those 12 months. You can change if that's your prerogative. You should have an employment offer letter just to have that shows that you are working at whatever employer that you have. And you will also need a job offer letter with you to travel when you re-enter the US. If for whatever reason you go over those 90 days of unemployment time while you're on OPT, Unfortunately, that is a huge violation of your status, and you do have to depart the US immediately. Traveling outside the US. So just like how you travel right now as a student on your F1 visa, you can do the same while on OPT. But we only recommend that you travel once you have your EAD card in hand. Because if you leave the country while your EAD card is pending, things can get super tricky. So when you re-enter, please make sure you have with you your EAD card, your valid passport. If your passport right now is not valid for at least 6 months into the future, I highly suggest that you renew it before you apply for OPT. You also need a valid F1 visa. So if your visa is expired right now, that's perfectly okay. You can apply for OPT with an expired visa. But if you were to leave the US for whatever reason, you would need a brand new F1 visa to re-enter. Right now, as a student, you are used to getting your I-20 signed once per year. But while on OPT, you do have to get that I-20 signature once every 6 months. And it's the same process. Just go on our website, apply for a travel signature, and you will get your new I-20 uploaded to you. Last but not least, you will also need your employment offer letter, like I just mentioned, something that states, on official company letterhead that you work for whatever employer it is, since when, and, a little description about what type of work you do. Can you study while on OPT? So the answer is no. You cannot start a new program while you've been on OPT. You cannot do part-time degree program while on OPT. If the government does catch you trying to do both, so working full-time and studying, they will terminate your EAD card, which obviously isn't a good situation to be in. So, I know while you've been enrolled, people are saying, this is a student visa, you're not here to work, but right now it's the opposite. On OPT, you should be working, not studying. If you do want to start a new program, so for example, say 6 months into your OPT, you get accepted to a master's program, and you'd like to stop your OPT and do that, that's perfectly okay, normal and fine. Just let us know that you're choosing to end your OPT and you're either transferring your record to another university or we're issuing you a change of level I-20. If you want to take community rec classes, obviously that's a completely different story. So any recreational lessons or classes, that is perfectly fine. Just no classes that could amount to a degree. Paying taxes, my least favorite subject. So yes, you will have to pay taxes just like everyone else in the US. If you've been in F1 status, and you've been in the US less than 5 years, these three will not be withheld, which is good. Check for accuracy on your first paycheck though, just to make sure, like we said earlier, it's easier to fix something early rather than later, especially once April rolls around and it's time for you to do your taxes and you see, your name is misspelled or they don't have all your correct information. So your company might have a tax treaty with the US. If so, that's pretty cool. Most countries do. But make friends with your human resources manager. They're the ones that handle this type of stuff for employers, or maybe they have a tax office or legal, whoever it may be. Do not ask the ISSO for tax related questions or answers. I assure you, you do not want me answering anything regarding to taxes, considering I don't even do my own. My parents still do mine. So, and no one on the ISSO staff is a CPA. No one has that knowledge at all. So, please, once tax season rolls around, do not email the inbox asking tax questions. So once your EAD card is ending, you do have options. So you do still get a grace period of up to 60 days after your EAD card expires. In that 60 days, you can stay in the US, you can travel all around, but you cannot work. And if you do choose to leave the US, you are not re-entering in F1 status. That is it. In those 60-day grace period, we can transfer your F1 record to another university or issue you a change of level I-20. So just know that every time you earn a higher degree, that you get 12 more months of OPT. So for example, if you're a bachelor's student right now and might want to do a master's or PhD down the line, you'll get another 12 months of OPT with those degrees. Cap gap, work authorization. So if you are one of the students, the lucky few whose employers will file an H-1B on their behalf, but your OPT ends before October 1st, there is something called cap gap, which will cover your employment time from the end of your OPT and your start date of the H-1B. And you'll still remain in valid status. As I mentioned earlier, you do have the chance to apply for a STEM extension before your EAD expires, if in fact you are eligible for that extension. So you would get an extra 24 months on top of the 12 months. So you'd get 3 years in total on OPT, which is amazing for employers. Because that means they don't have to sponsor you out of pocket for those 3 years. But I'm not going to go much into detail about the STEM extension, considering we are a long ways away from that. And let's get over the OPT hurdle first, the 12-month OPT. Ethical job search, just something to keep in mind, and you can talk to the Career Center more in depth about this, but if an employer is, offering you a job, that's amazing, that's great. You don't have to tell them on the spot, yes or no. It's perfectly fine, and it's, in cultural norms in the US for you to be like, thank you for your offer. I need some time to consider it. So, 24 hours or a few days. Please think, hard about your future employer. If you have multiple job offers, that is amazing, but don't sign a contract with a company for a month and then decide, oh, I should have went with the other company and quit and go with that company, because that looks bad on not only you, but it looks bad on UNC Charlotte international students as well. And maybe next time around, an employer won't hire an international student from our campus. So we don't want that to happen. Based on what yourself, what you want out of your OPT, make the best decision you can and stick with it. And last but not least, do not promise an early start date before your EAD start date, or when your EAD card arrives, okay? Because you will get in serious trouble, aka termination of your Thesis record, and your employer will also get in major trouble as well. And like I said, you can definitely contact the Career Center if you need advice on, what you should do if you do have multiple job offers, or if you're waiting for your first choice employer to extend an offer, and you already have another one from your second choice. The Career Center is a great place to chat with a career coach about that. Okay, last slide, ISSO information. So this semester we do have 4 days of advising. We have walk-in advising Tuesdays 2 to 4 and Fridays 10 to 12. What that means is that you don't need to make an appointment. You can just come to the office and you will be seen by an advisor. We also have 2 days of phone advising, Mondays and Thursdays. That might change them next semester, but phone advising, that will still be an option for you next semester while you're on OPT. I'm just not sure if it'll be 1 day a week or stay the same for 2 days a week. So if we do make any changes, obviously we'll let you know beforehand. As I said, the OPT review twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays. If you need anything regarding OPT, you can obviously reach out to me personally. You can find my email address on the staff directory on the ISSO website, or you can email the INTL SSO, so the office inbox. Please only email one advisor about a specific query. Do not email me and then CC Dylan, or email, the whole staff regarding your one question, because that will actually take longer than if you were to just email me, because then I have to double check with every single staff member, if they responded to your email. So please only email one of us at the same time. I promise you we will get back to you. Okay. So that is the OPT workshop. I hope you got a lot out of this. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I am here for you all, and I am your point of contact moving forward while you are on OPT. So think positive thoughts. All of you will get approved. Don't think about the negative. Think about the positives only. So if you need me, you know where to find me. Let me stop sharing my screen. But this will be uploaded on our OPT page on the ISSO website, and it will be on YouTube. So if you need to take a look at this, or maybe your friends missed out on signing up for the OPT workshop, the first one, and they won't be able to attend the second one, definitely let them know this video is up there for them to watch. Thank you all, and we'll be in touch. Bye.